Hello and back to the next part of the Red Jeep project. As you can see, we're here at the back of the Jeep and working on the onboard air system again, of course. I promise this will probably be the last video of this, and then we'll move on to some other interesting stuff like this rear bumper is going to get changed out. But I have to figure out how I'm going to mount the tank and then plumb up this air hose which runs from the front of the Jeep back here so I could, get it to fill the tank, of course. And then I have to then get my quick connect IM fitting back here and mount up the quick connect IM fitting in the front, do some wiring, and then it should be operational. It's been a while since I've actually been this, if you're not familiar with Cherokees, this is normally where the stock spare tire would go. As you can see, there's a nice divot right here for it. Of course, I run 35s now, so there's no chance I'll ever get a spare tire in there ever again. So it makes a nice spot to mount my air tank. So the first thing I'm going to end up doing is removing this panel, which just has some Phillips head screws here, one over there. Then I have to undo that bracket right there, because this panel slides in under the one in front of it and gets bolted down with that little bracket and some normal hex head bolts over there. And I'll be able to see or get a better idea what's under there and figure out how I want to make a bracket to hold the tank. Alright, so progress has been made. I decided to go with this orientation of the tank. Just right now it's sort of loosely held in with a bolt there and a bolt down there. I'll have to find a better way to space that, but for now, just for mock-up, until I figure it out more permanently, that's what I'm dealing with. I will have to find a way to mount it solidly on the other end so it doesn't have wiggle room like this. I'll probably have to come up with some sort of strap to go around it and tie it into the side of the Jeep there so it doesn't wiggle. But it'll work. Right now I have the ender moved, but the pressure gauge will be facing out this way. I'll have my line in coming across this way, and then I'll have an elbow, because the end that's on this has just come straight out, so I'll do an elbow, and then I'll have my quick distance coming out that way. So that's what I've got so far. So so I've potentially come up with a solution for this being so wobbly. I just have to, create another bracket and then do a strap around it. So this will be the bracket that I make. It's in cardboard right now, so I can mock her up. But what this bracket will do, will slip on down into there or something like that. So then I can just run a strap either across it, or I'll drill a couple holes to hook a strap to, just so the tank doesn't move in and out like it can right now. What I'm about to do is just unfold this and transfer it onto a piece of metal like this, so then I can bend it up and get her into place permanently, or more permanently rather. Alright, so here is my bracket finished product. I'll have to just straighten that out a little bit. It will of course get placed up there. So what I'm going to do is drill a hole over the screw that I just covered, so I could slip that in there, slip that screw in there, and then I'd like to do another hole a little bit further over here somewhere to give it some extra support on this end. And then that'll be that bracket which will hold the tank in place on the right. Pretty simple, right? So I've realized that once I put the panel back over this side of the interior of the Jeep, I have zero way of getting to the other side of these bolts that I put in here. So what I'm going to do is just sort of, hold them tight in the right position and put a tack weld around all of them, just so they'll never move. And then I'll be able to mount the tank there and not have any issues. So that's what I'm going to do next, is set up the welder, prepare the Jeep for welding, and just throw a couple tacks on there. Alright, now that those are tacked in, I gotta go ahead and clean up the inside of there a little bit. There is a hole over there that some water's been leaking in that I noticed, so I'll have to seal that back up. And I'll probably throw some undercoating in there or something to seal up all the crevices and stuff that I can't get to. So after that, I'll just go ahead and mount up the tank after, of course, putting my panel back in place, which, thinking about it now, I gotta modify to fit around the bracket and the new holes for the studs that I just put. Oh, and then I gotta put some paint on here too. Forgot about that. Or can't forget about that. Alright, so I gotta bring you up to speed a little bit. I forget where I last left off, but I got the panel back in place. I cut a slot over there and drilled some holes in it over here. Probably can't really tell, but it came out alright. And I put the panel up front back in as well. I took my tank, cleaned her up a little bit. It's a nice bright red. Kind of matches the Jeep, I guess. And then I went ahead and plumbed the back end over here onto the tank. It's just a intersection type fitting, goes into the tank, gauge, quick disconnect set thing, and then my line in for air storage. I ended up going with a hose clamp all the way around the other end of the tank to keep her nice and steady. I was originally going to try a strap, which would have worked, but it would have been more of a hassle than it was worth, because the strap will stretch over time and I'll have to keep retightening it, and it's more likely to slip off than this hose clamp, and the hose clamp's not going to stretch. And if it ever does, I just have to tighten the screw on it. But that's that for the back here. Up front, I need to do a quick disconnect somewhere up front. I have a barb fitting on here right now. So my original plan was to run a hose up to the front somewhere and mount a IM quick disconnect somewhere. So I got to figure out where I want to put that, and then I need to then put my pressure switch in here and figure out the wiring part of all of this so it's actually completely functional instead of just looking good. So I made my decision on where I wanted to put the front quick disconnect. What I did is I just took a piece of, or short piece of, 1/4 inch pipe fitting pipe on both ends, which is what the IM quick disc I have fits, and the barb fitting in the back fits. Ground a nice little notch in my bumper and just threw some tack welds on it. So then that makes my routing of hose pretty easy too, because I'll just end up coming through where it sticks through on the front of the Jeep here, and then I'll route my line all the way up over there to the distribution block, which you can't see from here, but it'll end up looking something like that. So then I could come in here, hook in, air up tires, do whatever, and should have plenty of room for a winch as well. So I have gone ahead and tested my system. I quickly went ahead and did some quick wiring to see if everything works. As you can see, kind of got shit going everywhere. And so I started her up, flipped the switch, and it works, actually. I had my doubts mainly if this AC compressor was good or not, and it works. So now I'm going to have to go ahead and do a better wiring job, and I'll show you how simple it really is then. Alright, so I'm going to give you a rundown of how this works. So obviously that's the pressure switch, but it all starts inside of this power distribution block, or whatever they call it. This is the relay that controls the clutch on your AC compressor, or if you're doing what I've done, it's now an air compressor. but there is, on my 99 Jeep XJ, there's a blue wire with an orange stripe. Now, because this is a Chrysler vehicle, I can't guarantee that'll be the wire on yours, but mine was a blue wire with an orange stripe, and that wire goes to the power control module in the dash, which is essentially just the switching mechanism that would normally turn the AC off and on when given the proper signal from the switches, or however you have your HVAC, you know, if you have, meaning if you have AC on or your defroster on and whatnot. So you would just cut that wire, which is what I've done down over there. This is the capped end that would go all the way up into the dash and whatnot, but this is the new end that comes off of there, which runs all the way across to a switch on the inside of the Jeep, which I'll show you right here. So that wire comes all the way across from over there and runs into some switches that I've had in my ashtray for various purposes. They used to run fog lights, and then at one time they were for KC daylighters, but now it controls, or is the master switch for my onboard air setup. So that wire comes in to one of those terminals, and then the other wire goes back to the pressure switch. So when you flip this on, it just completes the circuit for the pressure switch. So if the pressure switch senses that it's less than 90 psi, it sends a signal over to turn the air compressor on. So, like I said, the other wire comes off of that switch, comes back comes back across the Jeep and goes into the pressure switch. So if you follow that, I'll make it simpler. The power lead off of the relay, which on mine was a blue or dark blue and orange striped wire, goes to a switch, and then the other side of the switch goes into the pressure switch, and then there's a ground cable that just needs to be grounded on the pressure switch. Now, the advantage of wiring it this way using the stock relays and whatnot is it doesn't eliminate the fuses. All of the fuses that the AC compressor clutch had before are still operational. The only thing you've eliminated are the switches on your dash. It'll eliminate the Jeep's wiring entirely and just run a 12-volt signal to the pressure switch and then off to the AC clutch to kick it off and on that way. But if you do this way, and I'll leave a link in the description for a better explanation of it, you still get to use the fuses that control or would go to the clutch on that AC compressor or air compressor now. So if you're wondering, this is what the system sounds like with the hood opened and it filling up the air tank. This is filling it from 90 psi all the way to 120. If you look really close, you can actually see the drips from the oiler getting dropped into the system. From what I've read, this is, has a, it doesn't kill the air compressor, AC compressor, as long as it stays oiled. If it doesn't stay oiled, though, it'll die pretty quickly. you know, it remains to be seen, I guess. We'll see how long it lasts, longevity-wise. This next clip is sped up. This is filling the tank from 0 psi all the way to 120. If you're wondering, it takes 2 minutes and 30 seconds to do so. This is a little bit slower than I had thought, but then when I went back to reread what I was reading, other systems that were much faster were also involved speeding up the engine, which I do plan to do. I plan to add a hand throttle to race the engine up to something like maybe 1200 or 1500 to speed up this process, and to also make sure I'm putting up more amps for stuff like winching or whatnot. So, I don't know how much I'll cut the time down, but you know, it will be a little bit faster once I get that system in place. But this isn't bad for just, you know, idle speed of the engine, which is, I don't know, about like 700 to 800 or something like that. Filling the tank up in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, that's not bad. Now this next clip, again, is also sped up. About the same amount as the last clip. And this is including a full blast of the tank at 120 psi, and then filling whatever's required after that. 35-inch tire at 5 psi, or that was at 5 psi all the way back up to 35 psi. Now this takes 2 minutes and 30 seconds as well. So that's actually not that bad. But again, you know, once I add a hand throttle, you get the engine raced up a little bit to get some more flow out of the compressor, I could cut that time down a bit. But that's it. That's my onboard air system that's now in the Jeep. You know, we'll see if I run into any longevity issues, but hopefully I won't, and the system works perfectly. Or I'll have to end up buying another AC compressor to switch out the one that I have. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, link in the description, give us a like, and subscribe.